So welcome to our episode of Wired for Wellbeing. I'm Sheila Massand and I'm here with my wonderful co-founder, co-creator of the Viva event, Sue Coltman. Over to you, Sue.
Okay, well, yes, and extend a welcome too. And just to get straight into it, we've got a wonderful guest this afternoon, Emma Claire Davis. And we met Emma actually at the Viva event, which is sponsoring this, which is we're the co-founders of. And just it was just an instant connection. Her energy and she's so beautiful and she's musical and she's multi-talented. So on the information side of things, Emma's calls herself a reconnector, and I think that's just a perfect way to describe her work. And actually, having witnessed her at a retreat, it's just wonderful that your natural ease with people and the focus and way that you bring people into seeing more and more about themselves and their lives and understanding through the three principles. Anyway, so you work with stress unhappy business leaders and help them to reconnect with their um, themselves, basically, isn't it? You're not teaching them how to run a business. You're showing them what the foundations of their talents are, and you are currently living in between actually Spain and UK. So you do a bit of traveling. Possibly the most exciting, but speaking as a sort of a grandma, is that 7 months ago you had a beautiful baby, and so we're really fascinated, and we think it'd be lovely to just touch on how though your life then without a child and your life now, and still maintaining a business and helping people at the same time. I mean, I think that's fabulous. I'd love to hear more about that. So I don't know if I could just hand straight over to you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Sue, for that intro. Almost listening to you, it's like you're talking about someone else. And I think that points to the heart of this understanding that we explore, that we get very identified with who we are and what we do. And it's starting to create a bit of space between who you think you are and who we really are. And that's obviously one that I'm getting to explore a lot by, as you've just said, about being a new mum, because you never know what that's going to be like, and we can extrapolate that to anything, passing your driving test or becoming a mum or starting a business, or someone in my family gets ill. We have an idea of what that might mean, and we can suffer because of that, or we can you know convince ourselves that it's going to be the best thing ever, and then when that does happen we're finally going to be happy. And of course, whenever what happens, life continues to be life, and we continue to have our ups and downs. And I can say that becoming a mum has intensified that completely, so that the ups are just having my heart full, and really getting a deeper experience of what love is, and also it can bring up some of what Carl Jung would have named the shadow part, which is when you sort of really get identified perhaps with old brain conditioning, old thought patterns, and you get to see them sort of under a magnifying glass. Of course, that comes along with hormones and sleep deprivation. And I'm currently, when I'm in the UK, I'm staying at my mum's, so it's all like wow. Um, and they say that if you stop yourself from feeling the negative things, you're also limiting your capacity to experience joy. So I'm able at the moment, I'm privileged to be able to play with the full range of it, and then to learn from that, but not learn in the sense of, yes, I've learned this and now I'm advanced and I've grown and I've evolved, but just play with it all, I suppose, which is what we do with this understanding that we all explore in very different ways at Viva.
I think just listening to you, it's fascinating to me that you can't have the experience of becoming a mum without some understanding of the principles, well, a great deal of understanding of the principles. And I was just thinking, if I was listening in now and projecting back to when I was a young mum, it's like that. But how do you do that? I get, when I get worried that I'm worried, and that kind of scenario. And I think what you're pointing to is that actually that doesn't need to be the way we live. Is that accurate for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I think we're every single human being is going to have moments where they feel lost, where they feel stuck, where they feel like they've gone backwards, where they've not learned anything, where they've made terrible decisions, you name it, like just throwing up different things in the air. And if you can have that experience and kind of just know at some point, you might get lost in it for 10 minutes or a day or whatever, but know at some point that that's just not true. So someone said to me really recently, I think it was Joe Bailey actually, when I was having a call with him, he said that, when you really spiral down and you feel like you're spiraling down, it's a sign that you're about to have a huge shift if you're open to it. And that's totally been my experience. When I've had sort of like my blackest, darkest days, it's been a spring for then coming out and sort of just seeing widely again, having a more expansive vision again of things, and sort of the zooming out, as I like to call it. But if you don't know that, and we all know that because we all know it without knowing it. We might not be able to express it. We might not have a cognitive awareness of it, but we've all had that experience. Every single human being has had that experience. But if you don't remember it, or you're just not in touch with that part of you, or that, I wouldn't call it a part, but it's just not there in your awareness, it can be terrifying. It can be absolutely terrifying. And you feel like you're alone, you feel like nothing's ever going to change. And those two things are just never true. But sometimes they look to be true, and that's when it's scary.
I'm glad you touched on that, because that's exactly what I was thinking. I think if I was a new mom, well, I was a new mom many, many years ago, and had no idea of how we work, how our psychology works, who we really are, which is what we're pointing to in this podcast. We're talking about wired for wellbeing, which we're pointing to the default, that what's always here is wellbeing. And then the terrifying feelings and the worry and the frustration and the lack of sleep feelings and all the hormones and all the stuff that you've talked about is layered on top of that, right? Is layered on top of that. And so if I was listening to this, I'd be like, okay, so what do I do? How do I get myself out of this fear cycle, out of this always tired cycle, or this I don't know how to be a mom cycle, what would you say to somebody who's listening that feels, I heard you say one of the things we can rely on is it always changes. But yeah, how would you speak to a new mom who's really struggling?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, the first thing I'd say to the new mum is that you're doing an amazing job. It's always good to hear, and that like you are doing what you need to do. We spoke about this earlier. There's so much advice out there about what you should be doing, and I think that's probably, if I were a mum now and I hadn't come across the understanding, I think knowing myself and my tendencies, I would be very caught up in, am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? Is this the right way? Is this the wrong way? Is this the right thing? Is that the wrong thing? And, don't get me wrong. I have moments where I'm like, what should I do? But knowing that there's no right or wrong way, and that you do know what is best in every moment, can help you to just settle down and be open to hearing that, because the more, and again, I've seen a lot around this recently, the more we get caught up in anything, you're just not going to be able to hear that. And so you're cutting yourself off from the number one thing you can do for yourself and for your child.
I think that's a really powerful message, and the word that came into my mind was trust. That we perhaps never were told. There is something much deeper and more profound, and certainly wholly reliable and bespoke to each individual, that you already have. And whether it's child rearing or work or, you know, managing friendships or whatever, that it feels like there's a really helpful to point in that direction, you know, like just that piece of information alone, and then to help people discover that.
It's huge. And you know what it doesn't mean, because people might say, oh, so I just sit there and do nothing and wait for just do whatever I want. And no, I will find myself on ChatGPT asking a question about, what's weaning, my child, that sort of thing. Like, you do what comes to you to do. Sometimes I'll ask my mum, sometimes ChatGPT, sometimes it will just feel natural, even though everyone's telling me to be doing something in a different way. But I love what you said there, Sue, about the trust, is that, oh, just trust, okay, I'll just trust. But I think what's been really powerful for me is experiencing the bigger picture. And what that looks like to me is that we're all part of a web, and we're all interconnected, and all our insights and our ideas and our thoughts are all interconnected, and it all comes from this greater intelligence, whatever that is, and that's there for the taking. It's always there for us. It's not about, oh, I just trust myself because I am the best and I am. It's like, no, I need to get out of the way. I need to get out of the way. My identity, my self-importance, who I think I should be, how I think I should be behaving, what I think's best for my child, and all that. Get out of the way, and be open to receiving, I think, as well. That receiving will come in the way of like, oh, okay, everything's okay, trusting myself. And it also, in my experience, it's come in the format of having people helping me out. Like, so much that I would never have imagined, from going to the airport and getting the plane and having everyone rallying around, helping me to do that, to the support I've had from my mum and my family, to my friends. It's incredible. And you touched earlier on business as well, and like, how do you run a business at the same time? I'm very fortunate to be part of a team, and that team came together very shortly before I found out I was pregnant. How did that happen? I don't know, but it was like divine timing. And it's knowing that is there, and things happen how and when they need to happen. If I were to write my story on a piece of paper, it would be like, oh, I wouldn't have necessarily chosen that story exactly as I'm writing it. But the way it's all come together and how it feels at the moment it just feels just right for me right now.
I think there's a world of difference when we're talking about trust, and that how life comes and shows you again and again and again, and it always has done, because we wouldn't be here today if we had not had wisdom, common sense, and guidance beyond, what someone had told us or trained us to, cross the road's a great thing. That's quite straightforward, but life's complex, isn't it? And knowing that, I think it's a great gift. That's the way I look at it, to know about how it's already been present in our lives. It's not something we've got to acquire. It's already, and I think maybe Sheila mentioned it. It's what sits below all that noise.
Yeah. Yes. That's why it's so important to settle, to allow yourself to settle.
Yeah.
And I'd mention here as well, although it's been said many a times, perhaps some people haven't heard this, but feeling okay not to know. It's like, I should know, where's my guidance? I don't know. It's like, well, let's just get quiet. If we don't know, let's be okay with that. And a next step will come, which isn't necessarily the ending to the story. It's never the ending to the story. Sometimes when we're in a state of desperation, we want the ending to the story. We want to know everything. How's it going to work out? I need to know, I need to know, I need to know. Even if knowing is telling myself I'm a terrible mother, I'm terrible. At least I know that I'm terrible. And it's like, anything we can tell ourselves it's just a thought. it's just that, isn't it? It will change at some point.
I do. You laugh like that because it's just a thought. Because we're like, it is just a thought, and just is the wrong word in a way, isn't it? Because thought is shaping our reality moment to moment to moment. We can't live without having a thought, believing a thought, and seeing it as true, whatever that thought happens to be. However, we can, I think what I've been hearing through your sharing is there is some discernment between what you're taking as true and not. Am I hearing that right, or not? Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. And yet there will be moments where I'll be like, I just don't know. And that will be the moment, that's a call to just step away.
And I'm very much in a place in my life of being absolutely okay with not knowing. I think it's as I've been speaking to people recently, we've got it back to front. We think that not knowing is unsafe, and that when we know and the mind makes up a story about how it should be, like with a baby, for example, or in business, both are wonderful examples because they're real everyday practical examples. We have an idea of how it feels, what it looks like to feel safe. So when baby feeds well, and when baby, I'm just making this up, but this would be my story, when baby feeds well and is well physically and is developing in the way that we've been told that they develop, etc., sleeping well and all those things, that's safe. But then the unknown, when something out of the now baby's got a 40-degree temperature Celsius, and not eating and throwing up, and now it's like, oh, but actually we're always in the unknown, right? We always really don't know what's going to happen. And seeing that can be I think there's such a power to that, and comfort as well in some strange way to know.
Absolutely. A couple of things came to mind. Well, I guess you might be interviewing Marina at some point. She's speaking, isn't she? I was listening to her interview the other day, and she expressed that beautifully when she talked about how when you're a baby and you come into this world, suddenly you're sort of like shot out of your mother's womb, and you don't know what's going on. We don't really know what this is all about, and yet we do our best to try and make it known and to categorize everything. But the whole mysterious sort of, here we are, here's life, here there's a flower blossoming, we don't really know what that is. And then anything we can express and say that it doesn't quite do it justice. But we can wonder at that, and that feeling is what keeps us alive. And I started writing an article which I haven't finished yet, but a reflection that came to me was in your teenage years, where, at least in my teenage years, where everything kind of felt exciting, and you got your first love, and you've got the idea of freedom in the future, and everything feels like this. You don't know. Why would we want to give that up? And I'm not saying we need to be like teenagers, but why do we shrink our worlds down so small when that doesn't feel good, does it? And it's because it's not the reality of things.
And I think that's absolutely spot on. And I think what I'm hearing that's not we could speak about a bit more is this sense of a feeling and how we discern truth. Sheila was saying, we discern between this thought and that thought. And I'm reminded of just quickly of an incident when my little girls, they were 2 and 4, were very poorly, and it was Christmas Eve or something. And I thought, I can't leave it. I've got to get the doctor. And he was a really wise elderly doctor, and he came along. And the one thing that he said to me that stayed with me forever was, let me tell you, you will know when they are really poorly. Because I was thinking, oh, how will I know? How will I know? And the uncertainty of that and the fear that I might get it wrong. And he said, you will know. He said, every mother I have met and helped has always known. You can rely on that. And what a beautiful thing to be told at that point. And it felt absolutely hit home. I didn't have to go, I wonder if that's right. I'm going to think about that. It hit home. And I wondered if we'd just, enlarge on the feeling side of things.
Yeah, it's there's such a difference between having the intellectual knowing of something because you've heard it 1,000 times. People might sometimes they can say that this conversation is too simplistic because I've heard this before, because be present and all that sort of thing. But it's day and night between thinking, okay, I need to try and be present. I know that's good for me. I know it's the way. And to actually have an experience of, I'm completely present right now, and this is all there is, and this is where I'm alive. So I would say that, how do we describe, it's a feeling. I think it's a moment of quiet. It doesn't come with a lot of, oh my God, yeah, because this and it's just like a moment of, it's something striking. You feel struck by something. And as Sheila was pointing to earlier, that you were saying about how our entire reality is created of thought, or we can call it consciousness, or whatever this intelligent energy is, mind, that the fabric of our reality is that I'm looking out right now, but what I'm looking out on is a whole load of atoms vibrating. And from that, with my senses, which with this intelligent being that I am, and the ability that comes with that to think and to feel, the whole energetic experience, I am creating a reality. That's my reality right now. And that is constantly going to be changing because it's dynamic and it's alive. And Sheila has hers and Sue has hers. And I don't know where I'm going with this, but that's where I'm going with it. Yeah. At any moment that changes. And so when we have those moments, it's like, oh, we're walking along seeing a reality like this, and suddenly it goes, oh, hang on, there's more to see. Over here, it's suddenly got bigger, or I'm looking at this angle. And the reality changes, and it feels like that changes. It always feels like it's inspiring in some way or another. That's my experience. I don't know.
I was that line that comes to mind, except it hasn't. Like, it's that everything's different but nothing's changed. You know, that the line where there's, and that speaks to all that changes is thought. Something looks different, but it can absolutely change somebody's life completely. There's nothing that's not present right now. And we were talking about being present. There's nothing that's not present right now. Right?
Yeah.
Everything's available to us at all times. So just a shift in the way we see something is what has us have a whole different experience of life. And that being a mom, having a shift of how we perceive our child at any moment in time can completely change the relationship that we have with that child. At any moment, the child can look like a whiny, grumpy little blob. So, and in a second, somebody says something, or they smile at us, and show us that, that love, and that looks directly into our eyes, and we're like, oh, you're the most beautiful thing that I've ever seen in my life. And look at that. I mean, from one second to another, our reality can change. Vice versa, we can be loving on somebody and then woof. And in relationship, that you also know deep down you always love that child despite the surface kind of shifts as well. And I think that's a metaphor for life. Like, deep down, the foundation of well-being, we know that's true. On some level, we know that we are always well, always whole, nothing to fix.
Yeah.
But then there's all this surface stuff that's going on and changes our perspective and changes our experience over and over again. But knowing that we're on solid ground all the time, despite what's going on, for me feels that's what's changed in my life. Knowing that nobody can take that away from me, and I think it's just invaluable.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. That's really beautiful. And I think that's very much, babies are a great example of that in themselves, because I think I might have mentioned this to you in a voice note I sent you the other day, Sheila. You have a baby that's You can be dangling something in front of a baby and they're just not looking at it because they're looking at their hand, and it's like, oh, and they're really into their hand until they're not, right? And that's like us. We can just be seeing something until like, whoa, and there's a bell over there, or there's this beautiful color over here, and that's how we work. There's nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly natural. It's beautiful, and yet the difference with babies is that they are super curious with everything. And we sometimes, when we have this great quantity of thinking about how things should be, we lose that curiosity. And yet you look at the baby's emotional experience, they will cry their eyes out in a second. I'm thinking of Roxy when she laughs, she's like immediately she'll go serious, she'll go from laughing to completely serious. She's not going to try and, I'm not laughing so that you can see that I'm laughing because I'm laughing, and when I stop I'm like, okay, what now, sort of thing. And that's what we lose as well. We become very afraid and judgy of our emotional experiences. We have a narrative. As soon as I'm feeling something, it's like, oh, because I don't like this feeling, I've got to have a narrative about it. Whereas I'm not going to say, oh, you should just accept how you're feeling, because when you're feeling rubbish, you're feeling rubbish. But if you know that it's okay, it is temporary, and that basically the more you fight it, the more thinking you have around it, the worse it's going to feel. A baby could they'll cry their eyes out, and then it's done. And when we lose that as well.
Would you say that when you're working with business people, they're important, they've got big agendas and they've got stakes are high, whatever, has your experience of seeing life anew and all that you've just spoken of, and the way that babies and small children roll with the punches and they just jump back up and whatever, has that in a way sharpened your, probably wrong word, has that enhanced perhaps your ability to, or perception of, well, we're all just big kids really, we have got things to deal with, but in our essence we are all, we're all one, aren't we? So has that made a difference?
It definitely has made a difference, because business people, leaders, can get very, very caught up, and a lot of the people that I work with, they have got into what they're doing through sheer passion, right? They've stepped into the boundaries of the unknown, and yet then they've tried to make it known again. And then they start to have a lot of thinking, and then they start to compare themselves as to what everyone else is doing and what they should be doing, and all the noise on LinkedIn, and you can even take that to the wellness area as well. How should I be looking after my health? I should be getting up at 5 a.m. in the morning, and I should be eating this, and I should, so much thinking about how a successful business leader should be living and what they should be doing, that natural passion that they began with has shrunk down again. And so helping people to understand how they work, basically, and getting comfortable again. I always like to include the body in it, because I think the body is the place where we don't experience everything, because, as Sheila said, the present is everything. The body is just a part of that. But we can't take the body out of it, because the body is a very useful place to, if we feel good in our bodies, if things are flowing in our bodies, generally things are flowing in our experience. Helping business leaders to feel comfortable in themselves again, and to have an experience of how we work, and to bring back the play, that little bit, the play and the curiosity is a real game changer. I think it's the same with me as a mum. If I'm miserable, if I'm having a miserable day, generally Roxanne, my little daughter, is a bit more miserable. I don't want to make that 100% rule. It might not always be the case. And if I'm happy and I'm flowing, she's generally good. And it's the same with business leaders and their team. You can tell your team, you need to look after your well-being, you need to do this, you need to do that, But if you're not good in yourself, it's very difficult. And it goes back to the trust thing that you were talking again about earlier, Sue. Trust. There needs to be a trust as well in that bigger team and that bigger picture, for you to be able to delegate, for you to be able to really give yourself the life that you want to be living, rather than like, no, I should be working all hours, and that sort of pressure culture and that sort of thing. that is so ingrained into all of us. Being a successful, productive mum, being a successful, productive business leader, or whatever. Being able to step away and see that that is just a conditioning, it's a story, it's whatever you want to call it, is really, really freeing, and then allows people to get that passion for play back and try stuff out and see what works.
So beautiful, Emma, how you just described that. I love it. Yeah, there's so much more to speak about. You're a woman of many talents. And we have to bring this to an end, I'm afraid. So where could people get in touch with you if they would like to?
So they can write to me at emma@coachingtoreconnect.com, or they can write to me at emma@reconnectweekends.com. They can look me up on LinkedIn, Emma Claire Davis. Those are probably the best ones.
Avenues. Perfect.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. We're so looking forward to having you as one of our 18 speakers this year at Viva 2025. Very exciting, because you've been one of our staunch supporters over the last couple of years. Not only coming along to enjoy the conversations, but also the music, and playing us some music as well, because you're a great musician. So we're really looking forward to having the whole shebang and meeting Roxy, which should be very special.
We're both really excited about it, really, really.
Yeah, amazing. So you can find us at thevivaevent.com for tickets, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks very much.
Thank you both.
Thank you very much.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye.